The wrong drainage. The first thing they teach you when you train for search and rescue is that the woods don't want anything. They aren't malicious. They aren't watching. They are simply enormous and indifferent, and people get lost in them because people are small and tired and afraid, and small, tired, afraid people make bad decisions. Every hiker we pull out alive is a person who got lucky, or got found, or got smart in time. Every hiker we pull out dead is a person who ran out of all three. That is the lesson. The woods don't want anything. I have repeated it to every rookie I have ever trained. I have repeated it to grieving families. I have repeated it to myself in my own head on the long drives home from the kind of recoveries you do not want to talk about at dinner. I do not believe it anymore. I am not sure I ever did. But I repeated it for 14 years because the alternative, the thing I am about to tell you, was not a thing a search and rescue officer is allowed to say out loud. My name is Hannah Reyes. I worked the North Cascades district of the U.S. Forest Service from 2010 to last October, when I quit, 14 years. I have walked into more square miles of that wilderness than I can count. I have pulled out hikers, hunters, climbers, wildfire crews, the occasional drifter. I have carried bodies down switchbacks in the dark. I have sat with families in their kitchens and explained, as kindly as I knew how, why their son or daughter or husband was not coming home. I have done the job. I am proud of the job I did. I am telling you this because I want you to understand, before I go any further, that I am not the kind of person who scares easily. I am not the kind of person who sees things. I have spent 14 years knowing with the bone-deep certainty of someone who has tested the rules of a place against the place itself, that the North Cascades do not lie. That a creek that runs east on the topo map runs east in the world. That a ridge marked at 6,000 feet sits at 6,000 feet. That a drainage you walked up at noon will be the same drainage you walk down at 4. Until last October, that was true. Until last October. The call came in on a Tuesday afternoon. A solo hiker, female, 31 years old, 4 days overdue from a planned 3-day loop in a section of the wilderness east of Mount Shuksan. Her name was Anna Ferreira. Her car was at the trailhead. Her permit was on file. Her boyfriend in Seattle had called the ranger station that morning when she didn't come home and didn't answer her phone, though, of course, there was no signal where she'd been. He sounded calm on the recording. People are always calm on the first call. The shake comes later when they realize the days are stacking up. I caught the assignment because I caught most of them. I had the most field hours, the best compass work, and a temperament that families seem to find reassuring. We mobilized that afternoon. By 6 p.m. I was at the trailhead with 2 volunteers from the county SAR team, a kid from the Forest Service named Pete, who was finishing his 2nd season, and a borrowed dog from the sheriff's office. We had maybe 2 hours of usable light. We walked it. The first night turned up nothing. We made camp at a junction where the loop split, and we sent the dog up the eastern fork in the morning while Pete and I went west. By noon on Wednesday, the dog had pinged on a glove half a mile up the eastern fork, Anna's by the description her boyfriend had given. By 2 p.m. we found her water bottle, capped, sitting upright on a rock beside the trail. By 4, we found one of her trekking poles planted vertically in the duff like someone had stuck it there on purpose. That last one was wrong. I knew it was wrong the moment I saw it. Hikers don't plant their poles. They lean them. They drop them. They lose them. They do not stand them up like markers, and Anna Ferreira had been an experienced backcountry hiker. Her boyfriend's word, but borne out by the gear in her car and the route she'd planned. People who plan 3-day loops in the North Cascades do not stop at random spots and stake their poles in the ground. I called Pete over. I showed him. I said, "That is wrong. That is staged." Pete looked at it. He was 24 years old and he had seen maybe 12 recoveries. He said maybe she was hurt. Maybe she was leaving a marker. I said, "The trail is right here. The pole is 6 feet off the trail." "A marker for what?" He didn't answer. Neither of us said the thing that I think we were both thinking, which was that staged implied somebody else, and there should not have been somebody else. The trail register at the head had 3 names on it for that week, all of them already accounted for. We pushed on. The dog was getting nothing. The dog had been getting nothing since the glove, and the dog was a good dog, and the handler, a woman named Bev, who had worked with that dog for 6 years, was getting quiet in the way she got quiet when she didn't like what the dog was telling her. Around 5, with maybe 90 minutes of light left, we came to a place in the trail I will try to describe to you as carefully as I can, because the description is the entire point of what I am telling you. The trail crossed a small drainage. The drainage came down from the north out of a steep, brushy gully and ran south into a creek about 100 yards below us. The trail crossed the drainage at a flat spot where someone, decades ago, had laid 2 log rounds for stepping stones. I had crossed that drainage probably 100 times in 14 years. I knew it. I had stopped there for lunch on slow patrols. I had sat on the upstream log round and eaten an apple in the spring of 2017, while my partner at the time, a man named Wes, who is now retired and living in Arizona, told me he was getting divorced. The drainage I am describing is a drainage I knew. When we came around the bend that afternoon, the drainage was gone. I want to be very precise about what I mean by that. There was still a drainage there. There was still water coming down a gully and running south into the creek below. There were still 2 log rounds laid as stepping stones. The trail still crossed at the flat spot. Everything that should have been there was there. But the gully was on the south side of the trail, not the north. The water was running north up the slope into the high country. The log rounds were arranged in the wrong order, the larger one on the downstream side, the smaller one upstream, which is not how you'd ever lay them because the larger one would be needed for the bigger step. The drainage had been mirrored, reversed, as if someone had taken the entire feature, lifted it out of the landscape, flipped it on its long axis, and set it back down. I stopped. Pete almost walked into me. I said, "Pete, look at this drainage." He looked. He said, "What about it?" I said, "What side of the trail is the gully on?" He said, "The south side." I said, "No, it isn't. I have been here 100 times. The gully is on the north side. The water runs south. The bigger log is on the upstream side." Pete looked at me. He did not say anything for a moment. Then he said, very gently, "The way you talk to someone you think might be dehydrated, Hannah. The gully is on the south side. The water is running north. Are you okay?" I checked my map. The map showed a drainage crossing the trail at that approximate location, with the water coming down from the north and running south. The map agreed with me. Pete agreed with the world. I pulled out my compass. The compass said north was where it was supposed to be. The sun was where it was supposed to be, low in the west where it should be at 5 p.m. in October. The trail behind us went the direction the trail behind us should go. The drainage was wrong. Bev came up behind us with the dog. The dog stopped at the edge of the drainage and sat down. It would not cross. Bev said, "What's the matter, girl?" And the dog looked at her and did not move, and did not whine, and did not do any of the things a dog does when it doesn't want to do something. It just sat, looking at the water, which was running uphill. Bev said, "The dog won't cross." I said, "I see that." Bev said, "She's never refused a crossing before." I looked at Pete. Pete looked at me. Pete was, I want to be clear, a good kid and a competent SAR volunteer, and he was looking at me with the expression of a person who was watching his senior officer have a small, quiet psychological event in the middle of an active search. I was looking at him with the expression, I imagine, of a person who had just been told that the alphabet had a new letter in it, and everyone else had known for years. I said, "We're crossing." We crossed. The dog crossed last after a lot of coaxing, and she did it with her tail tucked all the way under her belly and her ears flat against her skull, and once she was on the other side, she would not look back at the drainage. She kept her body angled forward, away from it, the way a dog stands when something behind it is something it does not want to acknowledge. We made camp half a mile up the trail at the next clearing. It was full dark by then. I sat by the fire, and I thought about the drainage, and I told myself, the way I had told 100 lost hikers' families over the years, that the woods are large and the mind is small and tired things see things that aren't there. I told myself I had misremembered the orientation. I had been there 100 times, but maybe I had never paid close attention. Maybe Wes had told me he was getting divorced on the other log round. Maybe the gully had always been on the south side, and the flow had always been north, and I had simply built a wrong picture in my head over 14 years and was finally seeing the real one. I told myself this. I did not believe it, but I told myself this. The next morning, we found Anna. She was sitting at the base of a Douglas fir about 300 yards off the trail, in a small clearing the dog led us to at first light. She was alive. She was conscious. She had her pack beside her, and her boots laced, and her jacket zipped up to the throat. She had been there, by the look of her, for some time. Her water was gone. Her food was gone. She was severely dehydrated and mildly hypothermic, and her lips were cracked and bleeding. But she was alive, and when we came into the clearing, she looked up at us and she smiled, and she said very calmly, "You found me. I'm so glad. I was worried you wouldn't be able to." Pete went to her with the medical kit. Bev radioed in our location for the helo evac. I crouched down a few feet from Anna and I said, "The things you say. You're okay. You're safe. We're going to get you out of here. Can you tell me what happened?" And Anna Ferreira looked at me with eyes that were perfectly clear, perfectly lucid, and she said, "I got turned around on the second day. I came down the wrong drainage. I knew I was off the route, but I couldn't find my way back to it. I walked for a long time. And then I came to a place where the drainage went the wrong way and I knew I shouldn't cross it. So I sat down. And I waited. I knew if I waited long enough on the right side of it, you would come." I said, "What do you mean, the right side of it?" She said, "The side I came from. The side where the water runs the way water is supposed to run." I said, "When did you cross a drainage that ran the wrong way?" Anna thought about it. She seemed, for the first time, a little uncertain. She said, "I don't know. I don't know if I crossed it or if I just saw it. I don't know if it was the same one I came back to or a different one. There was more than one. I think there was more than one. I think the whole place—" She trailed off. She looked at the trees. She said, "I think the whole place was wrong, in pieces. Like somebody was rearranging it while I was walking through it, but only when I wasn't looking." I said, "Anna, we're going to get you out of here." She nodded. She said, "I know. I just want you to know one thing before the helicopter comes." I said, "What?" She said very quietly, very kindly, the way you tell someone something you don't want them to be afraid of. "I'm not the only one who got lost in there. I saw other people. Some of them have been lost a long time. They didn't know they were lost. They thought they were on the trail. They thought they were going home. But the trail kept rearranging and they kept following it, and now they are very far from where they think they are, and they cannot come back, because the way they came is not there anymore." She looked at me. She said, "You should be careful. I think the woods know you now. I think they have noticed you. I sat by that drainage for a long time, and I think I was supposed to. I think I was bait." The helicopter came 20 minutes later. We loaded Anna in. Pete went with her. Bev and the dog and I hiked out, and we recrossed the wrong drainage on the way, and it was still wrong. The gully on the south side, the water still running north, the log rounds in the wrong order. The dog crossed it without complaint this time. Bev said, "Maybe she's just gotten used to it." I did not answer her. Anna Ferreira recovered. Her boyfriend flew up from Seattle. She did her press obligation. The local news loves a SAR success story, a young woman alive after 4 days lost, and she went home. 6 months later, I got an email from her. It was 3 sentences long. It said, "I want you to know I have not been quite right since I came out of those woods. I see things at the edge of my vision. I think something followed me out. I am writing to apologize in case it goes looking for you next." I did not write back. I did not know what to write. I worked another 6 months after that. I avoided the section of trail with the wrong drainage. I made up reasons to send other officers when calls came in for that quadrant. I told myself I was not avoiding it. I was just delegating. I told myself a lot of things in those 6 months. Then, in early October, we got a call. 2 backpackers, a couple, overdue on a 4-day loop. The same trail. I caught the assignment because I caught most of them, and because I had not yet confessed to my supervisor that there was a section of the wilderness I would no longer enter. I drove out to the trailhead. I sat in my truck in the gravel lot for a long time. I watched the light come up over the ridges to the east, the way I had watched it come up 1,000 times in 14 years, and I tried to make myself open the door and put on my pack and start walking. I could not. I sat there until 10 in the morning. Then I drove back to the office. I went into my supervisor's office and I closed the door and I told her I was resigning, effective immediately. I told her I was burned out. I told her I had given 14 good years and I had nothing left to give. She was sad. She was kind. She asked if I wanted to take leave instead. I said no. I cleaned out my locker that afternoon. I drove home. I have not been back into those woods since. The 2 backpackers were found 3 days later by another team. They were alive. They were also, both of them, changed, disoriented, calm, certain that they had been gone for only a few hours. The woman kept asking what year it was. Her husband couldn't remember the name of their dog. They went home to Tacoma, and last I heard, they were in counseling and doing okay, more or less. More or less is the phrase the supervisor used when she called me. I did not ask her to elaborate. I am writing this from my kitchen in Bellingham. It is late. My partner is asleep. Outside the window, I can see the dark shape of the Cascades on the horizon, the way I have seen them every clear night for 14 years. They are very large. They are very quiet. They are full of drainages I know and drainages I don't, and somewhere in there, in a quadrant I will not name, there is a small, flat crossing where 2 log rounds sit in the wrong order and the water runs uphill. Anna Ferreira said the woods had noticed me. I did not believe her at the time. I did not want to believe her. I am a search and rescue officer, or I was, and I spent 14 years telling myself the woods don't want anything. But sometimes, late at night, when I am washing dishes at the sink and the kitchen is quiet and the window over the sink is dark, I see something move at the edge of my reflection. Just at the edge. Just for a moment. The shape of trees, where there should be the shape of my own dark yard. The shape of a drainage running the wrong way in the glass behind my own face. I do not turn around when I see it. I have learned not to. I just finish the dishes, and I dry my hands, and I turn off the light, and I go to bed. And I tell myself, the way I have told myself for 14 years, that the woods don't want anything. I am still not sure I believe it. I am still not sure I ever did.
This has been a story from the other side of now. If you enjoyed this story, like, comment, and subscribe.